We're all here. We're all here to talk about the Joint Police Fire Department Training Academy, the Fire Department Headquarters, and the Fire Vehicle Logistics and Maintenance Center. Just a little housekeeping. There is a chat function. There's a sign-in sheet in the chat function, so if you wouldn't mind signing in. In addition, there's a hand raised icon. There's an icon up at the top of the screen with a smiley face and a hand. You can raise your hand to ask questions. And we do ask that you hold your questions and comments until we're done the presentation. The presentation is not very long. Can everyone see my screen that's on a computer? Okay. So we'll begin. Where's my... I'm not sure. Okay, great. The presentation outline will essentially be a project overview and a schedule for what we're doing and how we're doing it. This is just the mission statement of the El Paso Police Department and the mission statement of the Fire Department. So the project details, the proposed location for the Academy Complex is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Officer Andrew Barcena Drive in that vicinity. It's in District 4. The campus will house the Police Academy, and there's the budget for it, the Fire Academy and Logistics Center, the budget for it, and the Fire Department Headquarters. The total budget is $79.1 million. The funding source is the 2019 Public Safety Bond, and we're opting to deliver this project as a design build. That means we hire a contractor and a designer at the same time. That takes the risk off the city, and it puts all the risk between the designer and the contractor. So it's a really, and typically it leads to accelerated schedule and reduced cost. So the property location, the city identified a number of and evaluated a number of parcels throughout the city. The selected property offers an opportunity to conserve open space while ensuring trail amenities are not impacted. It's accessible from all major transportation thoroughfares. It has available utility and stormwater infrastructure, which reduce construction costs, and the land is held in EP Water's inventory. A memorandum of understanding with EP Water allows transfer for the city use at 25% of the appraised value. You see here on this side of the slide, the left-hand side of the slide, the general location. This is the outline, and this little area here is where we are proposing to identify or to locate the Academy Complex. The parcel that we are acquiring is approximately 300 acres. We will utilize between 50 and 75 acres for the Academy. The rest of the space of this 300 acres will be open space to buffer the facility from the surrounding residents and from users enjoying the recreational amenities. In addition, the area is surrounded by open space. The approximate area of this whole parcel is about 1,500 acres. So by we are acquiring the 300 acres, and then we are working with EP Water to dedicate the remaining 1,500 acres as open space. And so you're surrounded with 1,500 acres of open space. We're proposing that the parking area be used by trail users during non-business hours. The location does offer some security presence near the trailheads and open space. And the quality of life funding, as well as the public safety bond funding, is used to maximize the open space purpose and potentially improve the road to the roundhouse. This is the location relative to the Lazy Cow trailhead and the Roundhouse trailhead. This is the location of the Academy Complex to scale. I do want to say that the Academy will be designed with materials that blend in to the environment. We are very adept at doing that. If anyone is familiar with the hospital campus at Providence and Trans Mountain, we are locating a fire station right next to that, and the fire station blends in with the architecture of the hospital. The Academy amenities, these are samples. These are not what the academy will look like. I just took some samples so you can see kind of the things that are there. It'll include fire training props, an indoor shooting range. The shooting range will not be outdoors, so there will be no noise from the shooting range. Swiftwater rescue pool, classrooms and an auditorium, a fitness gym, a simulation room, police tactical training facility, a mock courtroom, emergency vehicle training area. And as I mentioned, the academy will be co-located with the fire department headquarters and the fire vehicle maintenance and logistics center. The vehicle maintenance and the logistics center provides supplies needed at all the firehouses throughout the city. These are example police training amenities. You have the emergency vehicle training area. You have an area which they refer to as Hogan's Alley. Hogan's Alley is basically mock-up of buildings where officers can practice under various scenarios and entering and applying the police tactics to apprehend and secure facilities. This is an example of an indoor firing range. This is not the indoor firing range that we would have. And this is an example of a pool. They use this one to drop a car into. I don't think we're going to be dropping cars in the pool, but Chief Silva may tell, Chief DiAgostino may tell me differently. These are example fire training props. You have kind of a car shell or an actual car where they can use the jaws of life. They can practice the fire extinguishing here. You have what we call a burn building, which is a building in which has a lot of features relative to how to access various structures. You see kind of a pulley system here. You see stairs and rails. And it's accessible from the ladder. Ask everyone, please mute. I'm getting terrible.
Hi, Jerry, this is Tammy. You're cutting off. I'm not sure if there was somebody on the phone or somebody unmuted themselves. I'm getting some interference.
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Yes, ma'am. I believe someone unmuted themselves. So the example fire training props, they typically would have something like an automobile mock-up in which a fire is set and they can practice extinguishing the flames. An actual car where they can practice using the jaws of life, and what we call a burn building, which has various amenities attached and associated with it to allow firefighters to practice access, to practice high angle rescue, to actually set fires within these structures because this is non-flammable material, to extinguish the fires. I can tell you that the fires are fueled with propane. You will not see plumes of heavy black smoke emanating from the academy complex when fire training is going on. Our outreach efforts, we haven't made this decision unilaterally or without public input. We briefed the Bond Overview Advisory Committee in December. We briefed them again in April. We briefed the Open Space Advisory Board in May. We elected to form a subcommittee made up of members from the Open Space Advisory Board and members from the Bond Overview Advisory Committee, who actually looked in detail at what we were trying to do and helped us pick the quadrant of the property to locate the training facilities. We had a public meeting with the North Hills neighborhood in June, and this was introduced at City Council open session in the last June 22nd meeting. Our preliminary schedule, property acquisition is ongoing. We will have a period of programming in which the fire and police departments will define the requirements that the facility must have to meet their needs. We will enter into design builder selection in December and probably select a design builder in June. And we'll begin design and construction in January of 22. And we think we can complete construction by the January of 24. I mentioned to you that the project management team is headed by Daniel Garcia, and this is Daniel's contact information. And that is the extent of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Jerry, go ahead, sir.
Jerry, can you go back to the slide that shows the proposed 1,400 acres of open space acquisition?
Yeah. We are
Just
acquiring,
talk a little bit more about this aspect of the project or the proposed project.
we are acquiring the 300 acres that is outlined in yellow. And then we are working with El Paso Water to ensure that this is dedicated open space in perpetuity.
And this is some, okay. And this is something we can treat similar to some of our other open space purchases recently in terms of a conservation easement or other things here to secure this land in perpetuity as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I remember early on, there was some questions about funding sources for how the total land is acquired, and that working with BOAC was a necessary part of this. Can you talk a little bit about the funding sources and for the land acquisition and how that came to be?
The funding sources for the 60 to 80 acres to be used by the police and fire departments will be the public safety bond. The remaining open space of the 300 acres will be purchased using open space funds from the quality of life bond issue.
Jerry, if you could follow the attendees who have their hands raised, and that way we can have the discussion in that format. There's a person who had their hand up. I'm not sure, they just put it down. Last name started with a W, and I think Ms. Marilyn also had some questions in the chat, as well as, there he is, or she.
Okay, the person with W. Werling, you have a
Yes,
question?
yes.
Yes, I do. The fire department in a number of occasions has tried to institute a museum type organization and make a lot of the things available to the public that we have in storage in various places and some other things. I would like to know if we could add either to the training facility or the headquarters or as a separate entity, about 10,000 square feet to enable us to go ahead and institute something like that. And I think I have some support here too as well.
That will be something we can consider. It was not considered when we were developing the budgets for the bond, so it's not included in the bond funds. 10,000 square feet is a pretty significant space.
Well, we have several vehicles is the reason and some other things that we need to put in there.
I understand, but it was not contemplated in the bond, but we will look into it. I do want to caution about adding things to what was approved in the bond, in that construction prices, I don't know whether you've noticed, have basically skyrocketed since COVID. And if the infrastructure package goes through that President Biden is proposing, they're only going to go down. So you're actually going to have very limited funding to do a lot of extras, but we will look into it.
All right.
Next week,
Ms.
Ms.
Guida, some, I
Jerry,
can't
Jerry.
see. Ms.
It's-
Guida has some questions in the chat.
Yes, sir, she does.
Uh,
And after Ms. Guida, we have Ms. Elisa Morales with her hand raised.
Ms. Guida is asking, what is the stormwater infrastructure that you referenced? And where is the academy in relation to the North Hills Dam? One of the reasons we located the academy campus here in this quadrant was because the dam is right up here. So we don't have to put in significant stormwater infrastructure to capture and divert flows from the mountain. That's already happening. And then, is this meeting for comment on the location only or on something else? This meeting is to comment on the proposed location of the academy and its surrounding open space. What other locations were considered for the academy? I personally do not have knowledge of those. That is handled by our real estate department, but I do know that there are a number of places were evaluated.
And then Jerry, there's one more question on the chat. If you want to address that before allowing Ms. Morales to ask her question verbally. And it's from Ms. Julie as a guest. Can you see it? If not, I can read it to you.
I have one more from Ms. Guida. Is the city opening to considering any other location? The city really prefers this location, and we prefer it primarily because we're occupying a very, very small portion of a property, and the rest is dedicated in open space. We maximize the use of our quality of life funds and our public safety bond money by placing it at this location. It is undeveloped. There is a proposed development on this side of Martin Luther King, which will be very dense housing. There is also very dense housing to the, I'm going to say west, right here of the property. So Judy Ackerman said the sound is bad. Was there another question?
Yes, sir. There's one by a participant named Julie, and she asked, if the open space is intended as a sound buffer, shouldn't it be located between the academies and residences instead of between the academies and open desert?
Let me pull up another slide here. So as you can see here on this slide, this area right here is a buffer to the neighborhood. Whoops, sorry. That will remain as open space. The academy is set in to the property and surrounded by open space. So the rationale again for picking this quadrant, and this was endorsed by both BOAC and the Open Space Advisory Board, was the stormwater infrastructure, which is located here, and the proximity of utilities, which are located here. So we don't have to bring in utilities from a great distance away, and we don't have to put in significant stormwater infrastructure to control what is coming off the mountain. In addition, and I apologize, I don't really have a map of the city in this presentation, but the property is pretty much centrally located to the city. I mean, it's not center city, but if you look at the boundaries of the city of El Paso, it's pretty much centralized and it's a great location. Its proximity to transportation also allows access, easy access. And again, it will be surrounded by 1,400 acres of open space.
Jerry, now we can let Ms. Elisa Morales ask her question verbally. She's been waiting patiently. So I'm going to go ahead and ask her to unmute herself so that we can hear her comments or questions.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So a few things. I know this is for a comment as well. And so I guess I do want to state my severe objection to this development. I listened to some of the reasonings that you provided, the increased security for trail goers in that area. Somebody who frequents that area, I have not noticed any security issues. And my understanding is that that is also managed by the state. So I guess I don't really see that reason for moving it there is really substantiated. But I want to know two things, well, three things. Why is the city proposing to require so much space, but then leave so much open space? I mean, I think you're saying that there's a very small percentage of space that will be taken up by actual built facility, but that doesn't mean that in the next 5 years that whole area can be built upon. And so that's my concern, is that while this particular plan only impedes in a little small portion, there's all that acquired space can be built later. But so my questions were there impact studies, like traffic impact, ecological impact studies done on this area, and what were the results, and how can we see them as the public? And then why are we moving these facilities from where they currently are, and what's going to happen? I mean, I live close to where the fire department has their facility, and I'm wondering if it's just going to kind of be left and dilapidated, and what's going to happen with that.
So to answer your question, the city will make sure that there will be no further development. The city is going to basically need anywhere from 50 to 75 acres for the academy. It will reserve up to 100 for any future expansion, leaving 200 acres of open space, dedicated to open space in perpetuity. The traffic impact studies and ecological studies are part of the studies that will be performed as we complete the design. They are necessary for permitting. They are necessary for informing the design and what we will do there. We have not started the design at this point, and those studies will be conducted once the design builder is on board. And they will be available to the public.
Can I just add something really quick, Mr. Demiro?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is Representative Schwartzbein. So I think it's important to understand that the part of this as well is to take these 300 acres and use it to also work with the water utility for a total of 1,400 acres that would be preserved as dedicated natural open space for passive recreational uses, like what it's being used today for, mountain biking and hiking. And I would be interested in exploring to put a conservation easement on the remaining 1,400 acres, similar to what the city has just done with the Napland purchase, as well as the Lost Dog Trails, so that these 1,400 acres would be preserved in perpetuity as well. And I think, again, one of the things about this is that by locating these facilities here on 75 acres, we're able to go and preserve the remaining 1,400 acres in perpetuity. And so I just think that that's something that is important to note.
So because this was my question, thank you for kind of telling me what I should understand. I do understand that, and that's why my question included what is going to be done with those facilities right now. I think there is, an effort to move towards looking at our brown spaces and developing sustainably, but also the impact of these. I mean, the facilities for the El Paso Police Department Training Academy is off of Rim Road. So what, these left behind facilities are going to have an impact. And that's why that was part of my question. What is going to be done to kind of remediate the impact of those facilities?
There has been no discussion on the future of those facilities, but typically with city projects, when facilities are, I don't want to say abandoned, but no longer used, they're repurposed for other city use, or the property is sold as surplus property.
Can I interject here from the Open Space Advisory Board?
Sure.
So one of the requests for us to find places that are I believe the verbiage is open and undisturbed land, was to find areas like this that we could purchase and leave as is. And it's part of the OSAB mission. I forget how this is codified, but it's codified somewhere that says that as we purchase land, we can't change our minds and like make them disturb them and change their use. Like it's difficult to even consider things like adding roads or adding basic trails to those areas. So I'm not as concerned about whether or not like there will be a later development that will expand the use of this, just because by using the open space quality of life funding, that makes it such that like the city is not allowed to change the use for that area, as far as I understand. I'm making this statement sort of off the cuff and without like making sure that like I have a lawyer next to me making sure that what I said is absolutely true, but that's what's been conveyed to me, and that's why I think looking at a place like this that has a lot of space, that is at like a reasonable price, that is close to a lot of other areas that are important to all of us. It seemed like an interesting place to look to acquire. And I had the same questions as a lot of other people where, when they said police academy, I immediately thought of like, loud gun noises and gun ranges. And I've been glad to see that the people making this plan have identified that as an important thing that is basically a no-no that shouldn't happen here. I'm all set.
Thank you so much, sir, for your comments. I noticed that Representative Molinar had his hand up, so we're going to give him the opportunity to speak. And then after him, it would be Ms. Sharon Bonart.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Yes, this is Representative Molinar. I represent people in District 4. And so I have reviewed this proposal, the site location many times. I have to say I am in agreement with this for various reasons. The city of El Paso passed the public safety bond in November of 2019. And so I believe this is the second part of that money, or the funds, but it is very economically sound, fiscally sound. The location here, that's already existing, the fact that we can purchase that land at 25% of the appraised value, we're going to save a lot of money in that way. And so we have other with that savings of 75%, we can use that for another part or component for public safety as well. And if you look at right now at this slide number 4, so just well, I can't put my cursor there, but it's a very small percentage of the 1,400 acres of land there. That's one thing. And for Ms. Morales, I can tell you, a lot of people don't even know where the police academy is at. The current police academy is. I don't know if you've ever been there or not, ma'am, but it's a very old structure. It is not the best structure, I can tell you that much, but I really don't know what the future use would be, but it's just there. As far as the fire department, I don't know what they're going to do with their building if they do have that, but I do support this location. I can tell you that, and I will go public with that. I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to add the existing police academy has very limited parking space. And so when they're out there and they invite larger groups, it is really challenging to park because it's not like they have the on-street parking that you would have in other locations, because the on-street, of course, would be scenic drive, and that's not really advisable in any form. Up next, we have Ms. Sharon Bonart, and so she's had her hand up. And then after her, let me go ahead and name the next person so we don't skip anybody, is Martin Guillen.
Really quick before
Yes, sir.
the Bonarts go on, I just wanted to first recognize that it was Stephen Torres from the Open Space Advisory Board that spoke before Representative Molinar, for the record as well. But also my district and District 2, Representative Vanello's, both of our districts are directly abut the current police academy. And I can tell you that we consistently, and I've been in office now for 6 years, consistently hear concerns from noise from the police academy of training and other things that are going on as well. The fact that the shooting range is indoors here, the fact that these facilities will be LED certified, they'll be solar ready with a look towards being environmentally sustainable, especially as we're continuing this journey towards a more sustainable future, is also something to think about as well. So. Thank you. Ms. Bonart?
Okay, go ahead, Rick.
Yes, so I want to speak somewhat formally. And I think that I want to first start off by saying I'm very, very, very much in favor of this. I think this is, from an open space standpoint and from a purchasing standpoint, just a smoking hot deal. Can't get any better. And what I mean by that is, at BOAC, from the 2012 Quality of Life Bond, we basically have $3 million left to purchase open space. And what this proposal allows us to do is to use that $3 million as basically seed money. Because if we just use the $3 million as we have in the past, and you consider comparables that we paid for open space over the years, you'd only be able to acquire an additional 180 acres with that $3 million. But by combining this with the city's participation and the offer that's been made from the Public Service Board, we're stretching that from 200 acres or 180 acres to 1,400 acres. And also, as a way of reference, remember, Lost Dog was purchased for $12 million of only 1,000 acres. So this is really a bargain as far as open space purchasing power. You'd never be able to leverage or get this much land. It's only coming out to about $4,500 an acre, which is crazy cheap. I mean, I've been on the Public Service Board, I've been on the Bond Oversight Board, I've been on OSAB, and I can tell you chances like this come only once in a lifetime. And I remember back in the day when we were looking for just 40 acres around the roundhouse to try to preserve some of the trails. And now we're surrounding that by over 1,000 acres. So how this cannot be criticized from that standpoint. Also, at Lost Dog, we do have other facilities. Remember, there's water tanks and a road there, and those are so unnoticed because the other area is so large, as this will be. The police academy and its facility will not detract from what we're trying to do, which preserve large parcels of open space. Also, remember, on the other side of Martin Luther King, there will be a very, very large development. So this is a chance, once in a lifetime chance, and I would be foolish to oppose this as an open space advocate. And I think it's a golden opportunity and we should avail ourselves of it. And like they've been saying, the police academy footprint is going to be very, very small in relation to the very, very large parcel of open space, which is contiguous with the state park, which makes it look even more enormous and a better purchase. This checks all the boxes for open space purchases, being large, being contiguous with other open space, being currently used as open space assets for recreational purposes. It is absolutely mostly natural, and therefore it checks all the boxes. You couldn't find a better fit for our money. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Bonart.
sir. Up next, we have Mr. Martin Guillen. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon. Yeah, I'd like to thank Representative Molinad as my representative here in the Northeast. I'm a resident of the neighborhood that's closest to where this will go, and I frequent the area a lot. And I agree with Representative Molinad and also Representative Schwartzbein. I think this is a good idea. This provides the city with, current and facilities that we need for fire and policemen. There will be development, as Mr. Bonart mentioned, immediately to the east of where this is going to be, and then also additional development near the Painted Dunes Golf Course. So that's already going to increase population. But I think this is a good idea. I agree and support this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
your comments.
Could you
Just so
please
everybody
state your
knows,
name? The
go ahead,
gentleman, last gentleman, Tammy, could you have him repeat his name?
his name is Martin Guillen.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Just so everybody knows the process that I am following, to be fair to everybody, if you are home or at work or wherever you are on a computer, just go ahead and raise your hand. We're going to call on you. We're going to call on everybody who's had their hand raised, and then I'm going to give the folks who have called in the opportunity to unmute themselves. And then we're going to go back to the comment area, the chat box, to make sure that we cover any questions that are in there. So up next, again, Mr. Torres, if you have another comment, your hand is up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
All set, thank you.
Thank you. Up next, and I'm trying to see if Joe is our city representative, or we have another guest by the first name of Joe. So if you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, so this is Joe Garibay. I'm also on the Open Space Advisory Board and also on the board of the Borderland Mountain Biking Association. And I got to tell you, we totally endorse this plan. I've looked at it. It is a good deal. If I had any change to it at all, I'd probably push the Academy closer to the Roundhouse Trailhead rather than the Lazy Cow Trailhead. But if we get this deal to go through, we are saving all the land from the neighborhood to the quarry. That's a massive chunk of land. And so, I mean, if you drive down Martin Luther King, it is the way to do this. I mean, As Rick said, a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, yes, we're giving up 60 acres for the police academy, but we're also going to get a parking lot. But to get the rest of that land saved, I mean, at one time, that was all going to be developed. We were going to lose everything. So as a member of both those boards, I got to tell you, we've looked at it. I love open space. This is a good deal for open space. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next, we have Ms. Marilyn Guida, and then Ms. Marilyn, I know that you also have some comments written in the chat box. If you want to go ahead and ask all your questions right here so that we can address them, so we don't have to wait till toward the end of the meeting to address those that you've written down, that would be great.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to discuss my opinion on the academy and on some of the comments I heard from staff. The situation I'm concerned about with the stormwater is that we don't just have 100-year floods anymore. We have 500-year floods, and we've had 3 or 4 of them in Texas, although not right here. We know what happens with just the rain that we had this week. And in 2006, I wasn't here, but that was really serious. So I'm worried about dams overflowing. And there is no one in the United States right now, because of the FEMA rule about the 100-year flood preparation, that is able to deal with a 500-year flood. And I'd also like to mention, first of all, that some of us remember May 4th, 2019, when 89% of voters in El Paso voted that the Lost Dog area should remain natural open space. So with a vote that large, I thought the city would realize that the vast majority of El Pasoans love the Franklins, love natural open space, whether they are bikers and hikers or not. That vote was not just about one location. That vote was the first time El Pasoans had a chance to vote to support natural open space over development. The 89% vote to save natural open space is unique in El Paso, and the city should realize that continued development of the Franklins is going to be met with opposition. In El Paso, people may object, but they don't always make themselves heard to city government unless an election comes up. Some of us keep coming to these meetings and urging the city not to develop the Franklins because we know there are many others who agree with us. The whole point of wanting to save the natural open space is the unique Chihuahuan Desert where we live. Trails in natural open space are important, but it's not a question of trails as the motivating factor of saving natural open space. Instead, the natural open space is the foundation of the experience of being on a trail. We are the last area in the United States which is fully in the Chihuahuan Desert. It is our iconic trademark. Removing it by development, little by little, until it is picked apart, totally defeats the viability of the ecosystem and leaves us with scars and shreds and degraded areas, which undermines a significant part of our identity as a community. El Paso needs all the open space we have left. We have already lost too much on all areas of the mountains and throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guida. And I know you had some questions in the comment. Did you want to ask those as well in addition to your statement?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to scroll, Jerry, just really quick because we have her here on the as a list of the participant who's got the floor. So let me find it. And I apologize, Sharon.
Tammy?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
believe it's at 626 in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I was looking at it. There it is. She asked, her question was, isn't the land currently owned by El Paso Water? I noticed EPW is selling land to developers in recent EP Inc. article.
The land is owned by EP Water, and as I stressed, we are working with EP Water to conserve the 1,400 acres or 1,200 acres around the 300 acres as open space in perpetuity. If we don't do this deal, that doesn't preclude the EP Water from selling to a developer. And in this way, by locating on this property and getting the concurrence of EP Water to preserve the acreage around it in perpetuity as open space, we are essentially stopping major development from occurring. As for the comment about the dam, I don't know what the capacity of the dam is. It is something we can address with EP Water.
Thank you, Jerry. Up next, we have Ms. Judy Ackerman, who I understand also had some comments in the chat. So if you can go ahead and ask your questions now and make your statement. Somebody unmuted themselves.
Okay, I think I unmuted myself, and I want to thank you all for whoever set up this public meeting. Thank you for this opportunity to comment on what decisions are being made by our elected officials and appointed officials, and especially thank you to all the people who are participating. This is involvement in our government is one of the things that makes El Paso a great place. So my main point is that I suggest we move this academy north 2 miles. It puts it in the quarry. That quarry is also owned by the Public Service Board or El Paso Water. It is leased to Job. It is the quarry land that is leased is a section, which is 1 square mile or 640 acres. So you get a picture of where it is. This is if you're going out War Highway, which is Martin Luther King becomes War Highway. And when you get to on the right-hand side is the Newman Power Plant. On the left-hand side is the quarry. It's a square mile, so it's big. And I ask you to investigate this option. The land is owned by the same people. It has the opportunity to be used for the academy, although it's currently being quarried. I'm not sure how long the lease is. I'm guessing in years, but there's only a very small portion of that section of land that is actually being quarried. There's plenty of room to fit the academy. So I ask you to please consider this option. Is there any possibility that you would be able to do that?
We have not looked into that, and we, with the support of BOAC and OSAB, really feel this location is best because it preserves open space. We don't know how long the lease is with Job. We don't know whether El Paso Water would be willing to remove Job from the property. That's a revenue source for them. So I think we're
no need to remove them. No need to remove them. There's plenty of room. So at least ask. That's what I ask.
Thank you, Ms. Judy. Mr. Bonart had his hand up for a while as well, and so he's up next, followed by Mr. Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak again. So I just want to address the idea, as you mentioned, about maybe moving the police academy to any other location. I'm not doubting that you could fit the police academy at the quarry. I don't think that that's a bad suggestion. But by doing so, we remove the city's participation, their monetary participation, that allows us to stretch the open space dollars that we have to purchase this large parcel. As Mr. DeMuro said, if you don't purchase this parcel, what makes you think it will stay as open space? This is the old Northeast Master Plan. Why wouldn't they just go forward and sell it and build on it like they plan to do elsewhere? How would you preserve this otherwise? Lost dog costs money. we had money to come up with to make us be able to pay for that big parcel. Those monies are gone. So this is the opportunity to use the money we have and stretch it to buy the biggest parcel of open space that's available. And originally, the first offer was, hey, Bonart, do you think you could get Borderland Mountain Bike Association to get a grant and maybe buy 600 acres along Martin Luther King?
Yeah.
But we were able to negotiate for more and more and come up with this plan. So again, I believe you have a golden opportunity here to actually use the dollars we have to get more open space. Otherwise, maybe you'd only buy another 180 acres with the money that we do have. So this makes your dollar stretch very, very far and get a lot of property for a small amount of money, or relatively small. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have our guest, Joe, and then Ms. Ackerman had a follow-up question.
All right, so Joe Garibay again. And so, yeah, Judy, I understand what you're saying to move it out there. And, you know, it is more remote. But if we stay within that yellow box, I know we don't impact any trails. If we move outside of that yellow box and we go to the area you're talking about, we're going to impact 2 trails. And I can tell you from a mountain biking perspective, that's going to raise the R. They're going to sit there and say, oh, you know, you guys are taking trails away from us again. And so as I look at it, that area within the yellow box is the best spot to do this without impacting any trail. So the trail runners, the mountain bikers, the hikers, they keep what they have already. So that's one of the reasons we looked at that area, and we do prefer it to be south of the Roundhouse dirt road. Thank you.
Ms. Ackerman, before you make a comment, I wanted to give Rep. Molinar an opportunity to speak. I see he's got his hand up. So, sir, go ahead and take the floor.
Thank you, Tammy. Once again, Representative Molinar, and forgive me for not including everybody. Like I say, Ms. Campos Lopez here, Fabiola Campos Lopez. So appreciate everybody from different parts of the city coming in and participate in this meeting. I would like to say though, I remember I've lived in Northeast 50 plus years. I can tell you, I remember very vividly, there was no North Hills. I remember the first North Hills that was built, and then it keeps adding north and north and north. Loma Clara, of course, is the last part or parcel of that thing. Or subdivision, I should say, not something. But anyways, once again, what would stop the Public Service Board, the EP Water, from selling off their land? Nothing stops them. They have a board and they can do what, within reason and legally, what they want to do. And so you could see, and maybe 4 or 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you're going to go north, and that's going to take out the open space. And how far north are they going to go? You know, if they can get more bang for the buck, it's going to happen. I say this is going to protect us, the community, the land, the open space. It's going to be a win-win situation. Anyways, that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Ackerman, I know that you have a few comments or as well in the chat area. So if you can go ahead and address those now so that we don't have to take them up later, if we can just make us a little more efficient, if we can address all your comments and questions, that would be great if we can do it now. And then after Ms. Ackerman, we're going to have Jeff G. Be able to comment, and then Ms. Elisa Morales once more, and then I'm going to open it up to the folks who have called in because we have not given them an opportunity to unmute themselves.
Okay, I think that's my turn then. You know, we're talking about a quarry. I'm surprised that you have trails up there. I just ask that you take, what, a week or two to investigate this option. Ask the PSB if they would consider conserving that land. Any of the finances that you were currently going to pay to the PSB, you would still pay to the PSB. But the location of the academy would move 2 miles north into a quarry. Who can fight that? And anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. Jeff G., you're up next, sir. If you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I had a question. What was the size of the proposed sound barrier between the residential area and the academy?
We have not laid out the academy in specific detail, and I don't have the exact dimensions of the buffer, but it will be significant.
Okay, yeah. So that means the things that make noise, like the truck, well, in one of your samples you showed a driving track and stuff like that's going to be at the far end in the design, I assume, instead of being right next to the residential area, because there's definitely going to be noise pollution with that, I'm sure.
That's correct. Well, and what we are trying to do in laying out the property and the facilities is put those training facilities behind the facilities that aren't as potential noise generating. Like, for example, the fire department headquarters is not going to generate a lot of noise. That may front in the layout, and the training would be, on the other side, or we may be able to enclose the training grounds with both buildings, the logistics center as well as the headquarters. We still have a long way to go to get into detailed design and all the features, but our goal in this is to ensure that we have minimal impacts on the residents in the area, and that we maximize the use of our funds and create a facility that's state-of-the-art to ensure that our public safety efforts can continue to be top-notch.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Morales?
Yes, so I know that I actually don't remember if there was this if this was addressed, but have there been other locations evaluated? And I mean, because again, I really do object to this. One of the things that I'm hearing is that, it'll do you a favor, El Paso. We'll just build a little bit and we get to save all this land for you. And I wonder what that really means, in 5 years. And I hear the argument that many people have made, and a lot of these individuals have, serve on our city as elected officials or in other capacities, or utilize the trails, like I do quite often. And I understand the argument of this, we're never going to have this opportunity to save this much land. What's going to stop, further development? But I think this is where, as El Pasoans, and going back to, I think, what Marilyn said about the outstanding response from the citizens, I think what's going to stop further development, and I'm going to push this on to our elected officials, is you all. You all, I don't really know that there have been many elected officials who didn't run on open spaces and ecological tourism. I look at the Visit El Paso propaganda, and it's ecological tourism, and so. And what I want to do is, what I'm asking for conclusively, is what other locations have been looked at, and how can we kind of look at the benefits, ecologically, fiscally. But then I also want to put this on our elected officials, that you all are responsible for representing us, and you all are responsible for the economic health of our community, which we know ecological tourism is a big part of that. So I hope that we don't kind of rest on that argument that there's nothing stopping further development, because we can definitely find funds and other bonds to use to save this natural space. And this is where I hope that as citizens, we hold our elected officials accountable to the things that they're running on, such as ecological tourism. But again, I guess my quantifiable question would be, what are the other locations that have been assessed? And if there haven't been any, why not?
As I indicated previously, I'm not privy to how the city purchases real estate. It's not a public matter, because once the decision is made to disclose that they're looking at a certain property, all of a sudden the seller raises the price so it's not affordable. So those discussions are initially held in executive session with council, and then they are brought to the public at the recommendation of the council.
Thank you. Representative Sportsline wanted to make a comment, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna open the floor to him.
Yeah, I just want to respond because this is brought up again, what's going to stop this from being developed in the future and what elected officials are doing about this. So I think one thing that's clear to understand is that what would stop development from on this land of 1,400 acres would be establishing this as natural open space, purchasing it from the water utility, and then establishing a conservation easement on this land. And the conservation easement is not a radical or fairy tale idea. It's not something that somebody campaigns on. It's something that people actually do. And myself in this office have shown repeatedly, as long as I've been in council, to be a consistent champion of open space, establishing a conservation easement with the rest of council and the public to go above and beyond what the voters approved in the 2019 Lost Dog Proposition A initiative. There was no requirement. There was no interest, quite frankly, in some folks from the city in wanting to pursue a conservation easement on Lost Dog or pursuing a conservation easement on the NAP land. And this was something that was I took upon myself. It actually went and presented 4 separate times to City Council for us to set up a conservation easement, which was established on Lost Dog and Napland as well. And I think that setting a conservation easement on these 1,400 acres, minus the 75 acres for the footprint of the academy, would make a lot of sense to do in this. And that's something that I would be very interested in wanting to pursue with as much vigor as before. And the second thing I think is important for those that are here that are wondering what the city is doing in terms of ecotourism is that we have the development of an ecotourism strategy and master plan as part of our strategic plan for our 25 and 2025 plan. So ecotourism and understanding the economic development potential of attracting people to utilize this beautiful Chihuahuan desert that we have for passive recreational uses such as hiking, such as mountain biking, is built into our strategic plan. That is something that is there in our strategic plan. It's something that I advocated for and that the council ultimately voted to approve. And you can talk to folks on council, on staff that are here. Us developing an ecotourism master plan is important, but you have to make sure that you have those areas that can be preserved and celebrated, such as Lost Dogs, such as the Palisades Trail, Billy Rogers Nature Reserve, these North Hills area. And so it's part of a larger strategy, one that the city is actively involved in working towards. And so I think that that's important there, that again, looking at this opportunity with being able to preserve almost 1,400 of open space, 1,400 of area to be preserved in perpetuity, utilizing using city dollars as well as a conservation easement is something to strongly consider about what we're doing. Not just talking about conserving land, not just talking about ecotourism, but actually putting these things into action. And this is one opportunity I think to strongly consider. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a few participants who called in. If you have any comments that you'd like to make, please unmute yourself right now. All you need to do is press *6. So we have some participants on the phone who want to make some comments. Go ahead and do that right now by pressing *6. Okay, then we will move on to the meeting chat. Jerry, I was scrolling through the meeting chat. I believe we answered most of the questions. There was a comment from a participant named Julie. She wanted to know if within the footprint that was allocated, could we consider moving the academies or the training facilities further north?
Further north within the footprint. Right
Yes,
now, what we're trying to do in placing it there is to capitalize on the infrastructure that is on Martin Luther King. We don't have to build new roads to get to there. We don't have to build a road pushing north. We want to take advantage of the utilities, both electrical, gas, water, and the stormwater infrastructure. Before this dam was put in here, this was a drainage channel that flowed significantly because the water coming off the mountain. That's not going to happen. But if we move to further north, we're right there against the dam, basically. And we may have to orient such that we would wind up in that, but isn't a way. So anything is possible. Like I said, we have not done a detailed site analysis or detailed site layout. And we commit to the public in this meeting and in every meeting that we have that you will be kept informed. That when we get the concept plan and the specific locations laid out, you will be kept informed. Our first step is we have to identify the requirements of the police department and the fire department when it comes to these facilities. Once those are identified, we then begin to say, okay, the building needs to be this many square feet. And it should be oriented in this fashion to take advantage of solar energy or take advantage of stormwater controls that are already in place. And we'll show you all of that. We have historically come out to the public with our concept plans and taken the public's comments to heart. So we're not done discussing this with the public. This is only the beginning.
Thank you, sir. There was a question in here. There are quite a few comments. One is to remind the community that, and I'm going to scroll up just a little bit. If I can find it, that I think it says, and I'm sorry, I'm not wearing glasses right now, so I can see it. It says like the 10,000 square feet can be a true asset to the community. Chief D'Agostino has a group of pictures of other museums around the country. It would also be an education center for the general public. And so they're making reference to the actual fire department facility. I'm going to scroll down because go ahead.
That's a reference to the museum.
Yes, sir.
Again, 10,000 square feet is a tremendous amount of space to build out with the funding that we have and the requirements of both police and fire. We will look at it and see what can or cannot be done.
Thank you. And then there was quite a few questions about, again, the same individual. Don't forget about the museum and education center. Can be incorporated into either the training facility or the headquarters for the fire department. And I believe Mr. DeMuro just answered that. That's something that we will be looking at. Joe had made a statement, and I'm going to read it. I have heard the Lost Dog vote mentioned a couple of times. The Lost Dog was led by Rick Bonart with support from the BMBA and the others on the Open Space Advisory Board. These individuals are supporting this plan. And Mr. Mark Pumphrey has a few questions about these particular advisory boards. He wants to know, and I'm going to go one at a time, Jerry, so I don't overwhelm you. When and how did the city gain the support of the Open Space Advisory Committee as well as the Bond Oversight Advisory Committee for this plan?
The slide that is now showing on the screen shows when BOAC and the Open Space Advisory Board were briefed, and the BOAC and Open Space Advisory Board agreed to form a subcommittee of 3 members each. And unfortunately, I don't have handy the names of those individuals that would act on behalf of both BOAC and the Open Space Advisory Board to make a recommendation on this property and project. So you can see from the slide that the subcommittee met on May 17th and endorsed it on May 17th.
I'm going to paraphrase the next question. He mentioned that both of those committees had an agenda item to appoint members to review options for open space land acquisition. Who were those 2 members appointed to the committees? And I believe it's the Bond Oversight Advisory Committee, and he also mentioned the open space one.
There were 3 individuals from each. I know Dr. Bonart was one of them. I cannot recall. Joe, I think you were one of them from Open Space Advisory. No?
No, it was Pat White and Yvonne. I cannot come up with her last name right now. Cervantes?
Cacho.
Yes.
Okay. So those are the individuals. Did they report back to the full boards, to the full committees, with a recommendation to support this project? And did the full committees vote in favor of supporting this project?
The report was to be made at BOAC in the last meeting. That last meeting was scheduled for Monday. Unfortunately, that last meeting had to be canceled because we had difficulty posting the agenda in accordance with the requirements of the state for the Open Meetings Act. We will meet with BOAC at our next opportunity and discuss it. I can also tell you BOAC members very, very frequently interact when they're not meeting in the committee. And so we also brief them often when they're not meeting in a committee individually. We don't brief them as a forum. But they did delegate the authority to the subcommittee to make these recommendations.
Thank you, Jerry. And then the follow-up question, you already answered. It was, if so, when did the committees conduct this vote, and was it voted on in a public meeting by the full boards, full committees? And so you mentioned that that hasn't happened yet, right?
What was voted on in the open public meeting was the establishment of the subcommittee with the authority to make recommendations on moving forward with this project and also on the Mountain to River Trail.
So if I may, as the chair of the Open Space Advisory Board, I can tell you, yes, we did talk in June. We did vote. I don't know that we said it's going to be exactly at this footprint, you know, that the yellow thing, absolutely. The Open Space Advisory Board voted on and said that's what we wanted. And it was the whole board that voted on it. So the Open Space Advisory Board is in support of this plan.
Thank you, sir. Benny and Liz are asking if there are still plans for building a new high school just north of this proposed open space along MLK. I'm going to assume that we're going to defer that question to the school district, right, Jerry?
That's correct. I have no knowledge of what their plans are.
And then the last one that I see, oh, there's just been another one. And I'm going to jump to it just because we were talking about it and it's related to the previous questions. Did the Open Space Advisory Board vote in closed session or open?
It was a closed session vote because it was a property acquisition, which is how that has to be handled.
Oh, I don't mean to jump into much. I think that votes don't happen in closed session. I believe that, and then someone can tell me if I'm wrong, that we vote on a internally designated ID for the parcels in open session. And we don't disclose what those IDs correlate to for the reasons of having a closed session. So I don't think we make motions and make official votes in closed session. It's just, I think that's the nature of things.
Yes, that's correct. And then we have Ms. Julie, and if you are still online, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself and help me kind of further explain your statement. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. You were referencing the footprint, and it says north is right on this map. The bottom right corner of the yellow box versus the lower left corner, this increases the sound buffer while keeping the academy close to the road. And I believe your initial comment was, could we move the training facilities or the actual structures further north within that footprint?
An option to do that was presented to the subcommittee of BOAC and the Open Space Advisory Board. And the subcommittee elected to put the academy in the location that we're showing on this diagram. And one of the large factors in dealing with that was you had the stormwater infrastructure here to control stormwater. We do not have it on this side of the property. And we'd have to bring utilities further down than we would if it was located here.
My concern on that was that training is loud. It's probably a little louder than you realize. Once you start running the pumps, the engines, once you have a class of 100 trainees out there doing physical exercise, PT, yelling, moving around, putting one building in between that and the residences is not going to have as big an impact as you probably think. That's why, I mean, we have a lot of land available. It may require running the residences a little bit, but moving that even 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet or something like that to the north, which is to the right on this map, The moving it further right about 1,000 or 2,000 feet and then putting the buildings, as you're saying, that'll probably have a pretty good impact. Otherwise, you're going to start having quality of life issues with all the residences that live right there that, you know, at various times we'll be hearing all this going on.
Okay, can the speaker identify himself, please?
This is, I'm speaking over here under Julie.
Yeah, this is my husband.
Yeah. My name's Dan.
Thank you, sir. I think that addresses everything in the chat message area that are the written comments. I know that we have Mr. Bonart or Mrs. Bonart with their hand raised. I want to give them the opportunity to make a comment. And then we've had a few more people join us on telephone calls. So if you have a comment or something you'd like to share, go ahead and unmute yourself after Mr. or Mrs. Bonart. And then after that, I'm gonna give Jerry an opportunity to wrap it up. It's been a little over an hour, and I really appreciate you having taking time out of your evening to talk to us about this really important topic. But I also don't want to keep you here all night. And so I'll just know that this video will be posted online on the city's website. It'll take us a few days, but definitely we'll get it up there and we'll share that information so that the public is aware that the video is available. So up next is Mr. Bonart.
Yes, so I have one more comment. I also agree with the other person that said north is actually to the right on the map. And I can also tell you, if you look at the contour lines on this map, you can see that, yes, there's accumulation of stormwater above to the west of the proposed site that's being protected by that dam. You do not have the same issues moving further north where those contour lines are very far apart. That's because the land levels out there. So the water's not flowing through the area. It's not in the yellow box, but it's closer to the road of the roundhouse. So if stormwater is an issue, it's not an issue at another part within this parcel. So, and I believe I agree with what Representative Schwartzbein has said and what the other gentleman said, which was a lot of times you're going to have a lot of people upset about the noise, and it might behoove you to consider moving this facility much further to the north, but within the same proposed area.
Within the yellow box.
No, within the proposed area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I guess before I go to Mr. DeMuro, Representative Schwartzbein, Representative Molinar, if you have any final comments, go ahead and unmute yourself. And then I'll let Jerry take the floor and close out the meeting.
Okay. Representative Schwartzbein, I'll let you go first.
Thanks. Well, I think this is a beginning point of a conversation about some facilities and some land that's both very important for our community. On one hand, we saw the 2019 public safety bond vote and be approved overwhelmingly by El Pasoans across this country who wanted to invest in our public safety, invest in our firemen, invest in our police officers, and make sure that they had the best facilities to keep our communities safe moving forward in the decades ahead, right? Because most likely building these facilities, training academies, new regional command centers, we're not going to be building this kind of infrastructure and investing in our community like this probably for another 30 to 40 years. So I think it's important that we think about that and understand that voters really wanted to see that. And we see constantly that public safety, our police and our fire are very important to our community. So I think that that's one thing that this project touches on, is making sure that we keep that promise true to our firefighters and our police officers as well, who fight every day to keep our community safe. The other thing that I think this project to consider, and again, this is a beginning conversation, so again, we're not at a final place by any stretch of the imagination, and it's important that we have this meeting to hear these different voices. We may not agree on everything all the time, and that's fine. But also, I think, too, that one of the things to consider with this project is it does set in place the preservation of this land for, in perpetuity, 1,400 acres. And this is land on MLK that if you look at the development and growth of our city, this would eventually become developed in one way or another. And before we go to Representative Molinar, I just again would like to hear from Dr. Bonart. Rick has really been a tireless advocate for open space in our community for easily over 20 years. And it's something that I've grown to appreciate and understand further by being able to work with Dr. Bonart. And I know that he was so instrumental in the fight for Lost Dog and the preservation of those 1,100 acres in perpetuity. And I just want to just ask Rick really quick, as the godfather of the Lost Dog Trail movement and Proposition A, again, why do you support this? Because your voice has been a very informed, educated, and passionate voice throughout our community for so many years when it comes towards open space, when it comes towards ecotourism and celebrating our beautiful desert. Just kind of curious what your thoughts about that and why you're supportive about this.
Thank you, Representative Schwartzbein. Under very careful consideration, I make this recommendation wholeheartedly. And the reason is because I know what it's like to fight for 20 years to preserve some open space that's in the path of development. And this is another parcel that's obviously in the path of development. There's already a master plan on the area, and by buying this, we wipe out that plan. You can do another 20-year fight. You can try to go ahead and set this aside by some sort of another petition drive. But what is your petition drive going to be? Oh, we don't want 65 acres of development and say 1,400 acres. We want all the 1,400 acres. It's a ridiculous swap. No one will support that because here is an opportunity that's being handed to you to absolutely save this whole thing without a fight. And as Representative Schwartzbein has said, and as I've advocated, this deal needs to also include the knowledge that the city intends to put a conservation easement on the parts that are to be preserved. And I think that will go a long way in assuring the public that that will be the final resting place of this property, that it will remain as open space in perpetuity. And I think everyone is open to that. I've asked someone at the Public Service Board, and they are not objectionable. And so I believe that's an important step. I also think that it's important that you consider the impact to the surrounding neighborhoods. And the leverage that you get from the police academy is they will do some good as far as preserving and protecting what's there. They will provide extra parking. We're trying to do ecotourism and have the Roundhouse be a center for ecotourism. This would be good if the parking was co-located near to the road to the Roundhouse, because then you could have these larger venues like the Ice Climbing Festival in Ouray or the big projects that they have in Moab that bring in lots of races and lots of ecotourism and lots of venues where people can celebrate this and have a place to park that's not just some small area or fight a dusty road. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for they're synergistic is the word I'm searching for, that there's a lot of synergism from having a facility that's open 5 days a week, and yet 2 days a week you can use the parking lot. And it just so happens that the parking lot being open on the 2 days is the 2 days where we need most parking. So it's really an opportunity, and you'll never be able to afford this without this kind of deal. If you had to buy 1,400 acres at $17,000 an acre, or even the 37 that it was sold for originally to Mr. Hunt, it's unaffordable. So yes, you could co-locate or move the police station somewhere else, but then your opportunity to purchase this is gone. What drives this is we from BOAC are committing $3 million. And the city is matching that money. And that allows us to buy the 600 that's next to the road. And then the PSB is willing to throw in the 800 extra acres. It's a fantastic deal. It comes out to less than $5,000 an acre that you're buying something that normally costs $10,000 to $17,000 an acre. I just don't see a downside to this. I really don't. I would hate to have to fight to try to save this without any money. Thank you.
Tammy? I'd like to have Viola Campos Lopez speak. She has not spoken at all this evening. I see her hand is raised.
Yes, sir, she does. Go ahead and take the floor, Ms. Campos, and then, of course, Representative Molinar, you're welcome to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is Fabiola Campos Lopez from El Paso Neighborhood Coalition. I just want to commend this effort to have that conversation. Like you said, this is initial conversation, and it's on the design stage of this plan. And also, I just want to say thank you and be grateful that Representative Molinar and Representative Schwarzman are here. This is really make the difference, because most of the meetings that I have attended as part of the coalition with the city departments, usually the representatives are not there, and just the questions leave out there for someone respond to them later. And this is great. Just thank you for this opportunity. And I know, like everyone said, we have to come to agree to disagree, but the conversation is here and the opportunity is being given to everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to talk and make these comments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Demuro, for giving a great presentation. Always put it in simple and making it clear to everyone, given the facts. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabiola, for those kind words. Yes, I'd like to echo the same thing. Everyone giving up their time this evening, whether dinner time, family time. It's a great cause, but I'm glad that there's discussion. I'm glad that there's debate. I'm glad that there's open dialogue to make certain things happen. And I would say this for my personal perspective is that I ran on a campaign of 3 components. Number 1, public safety, which this includes. Number 2, fiscal responsibility, which this includes. And the last one is the preservation and conservation of open space, which this includes too. So if you're going to hold anybody accountable, it would be me. So I thank Mr. DeMuro, everyone from the city departments. Thank you for the public, your kind words, the chat, and we look forward to more discussion. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Molinar, and thank you, Representative Schwartzbein. And thank you, all members of the public, for making your presence known and allowing us to understand your concerns so that we can figure out a way to move forward together. As I mentioned, we will hold additional public meetings. I do not have a schedule as to when that would be. I would like to, at first, define the requirements of the public safety entities so that we can outline how much space is needed for the buildings and begin the process of laying things out before we return back to the public. I ask for that consideration at this time. So with that, I'll say thank you very much and have a great rest of the evening, and happy 4th of July.
Good night.
Thank you all. Good night.